Everyone thinks the biggest heroes at Leyte Gulf were the battleships. They were catastrophically wrong. On October 25, 1944, a decision was made that nobody in the U.S. Navy hierarchy expected to survive. A destroyer escort, a ship so small it was nicknamed a tin can, was ordered to charge directly at the approaching Japanese fleet. The USS Johnston, under the command of Commander Ernest Evans, had roughly 6 minutes to decide how to respond. What happened next would cost 186 men their lives and place the wreck deeper underwater than any other major warship from World War II. Let's rewind. The Battle of Leyte Gulf began as a coordinated Japanese counterattack to retake the Philippines. American forces had just landed on Leyte Island, and Tokyo sent 3 separate naval task forces to crush the invasion fleet. The problem: American commanders didn't know the full scope of what was coming. Radar was new, intelligence was incomplete, and radio communications were unreliable. The Johnston and her sister ships were stationed as a screening force, a cheap speed bump, basically, between the landing zone and the open ocean. October 25, 5:35 a.m., a radar contact bloomed on the Johnston's screen. Not one ship, not 10. A massive surface action group, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, was closing from the northwest. Commander Evans knew what the numbers meant. His ship carried 5-inch guns. The Japanese battleships carried 16-inch cannons. In raw tonnage, he was facing roughly 400% more firepower than his own vessel could muster. Evans had 3 options. First, retreat and radio for help, but there was no help nearby. The nearest American carriers were still hours away. Second, maintain screening distance and take fire until his ship sank. Third, attack, not defensively, not tactically, offensively. He chose the third option, absolutely knowing that it was likely suicidal. But it bought time, and time was the one currency that mattered. At 6:45 a.m., the Johnston opened fire. A destroyer escort charging a battleship task force is not a tactic you'll find in any Naval Academy textbook. It's an act of calculated desperation. Evans pushed the throttles to full power, 25 knots, the maximum his ship could sustain, and charged directly into the enemy formation. His 5-inch guns couldn't penetrate battleship armor, but they could distract. They could force the Japanese to maneuver. They could buy those precious minutes. The Japanese didn't expect this. Their battleships began returning fire. 16-inch shells weigh nearly a ton each. When they hit water, they create geysers the size of office buildings. The Johnston was zigzagging, firing, reloading, trying to stay in the enemy formation's blind spots. For 1 hour, this continued. 1 hour of incoming fire, of near misses, of crew members operating guns while their hands shook from adrenaline and fear. By 7:45 a.m., the Johnston had taken multiple hits. Her bridge was damaged. Fire was spreading below decks, but Evans kept the ship in the fight. He didn't know yet, none of them did, that their sacrifice was working. American aircraft were launching from distant carriers. American reinforcements were finally on the way. But in that moment, all Evans knew was that his crew was dying and the Japanese were still coming. At 8:30 a.m., a Japanese cruiser finished what the battleships had started. A torpedo struck the Johnston's port side. The ship lurched. The order came to abandon. Evans himself remained on the bridge until the last moment, ensuring his crew had time to reach the lifeboats. He was 55 years old. He'd spent his entire adult life in the Navy. Now he was going to die in the water. The USS Johnston sank at 9:45 a.m. 186 men went down with her. Commander Evans was among them. His last recorded action was swimming away from the wreck, helping other survivors until exhaustion took him under. The survivors drifted in the open ocean for 3 days before rescue arrived. They'd lost their ship. They'd lost their captain, but they'd accomplished the impossible. The Japanese task force was forced to retreat, not because they were defeated, they still had more firepower, but because the delay mattered. American aircraft arrived, American reinforcements consolidated, the invasion of Leyte Gulf succeeded, and the Philippines were retaken. The Johnston and her crew had purchased that victory with their lives, trading their existence for hours of delay. For decades, the Johnston's wreck remained lost. The Pacific is vast, and a single destroyer escort is a tiny needle in an enormous ocean. Salvage operations couldn't locate her. Historical records were incomplete. The ship simply vanished into the deep, taking her final resting place with her. The survivors aged. They wrote memoirs, they gave interviews, but the physical evidence of their sacrifice remained buried. In 2021, the wreck was finally discovered, not by the Navy, not by official government agencies, by a private research team using advanced underwater robotics and sonar technology that didn't exist during the war. The USS Johnston was found at a depth of over 20,000 feet, deeper than any other major warship from World War II. She'd rested undisturbed for 77 years. What the cameras found was haunting. The ship was remarkably intact, the hull, the gun turrets, the superstructure all preserved in the cold, deep water where decay happens slowly. But there were the scars of battle, the torpedo damage, the shell impacts, the physical evidence of that hour-long charge against impassable odds. The wreck became a memorial, a tangible reminder that some decisions change history. Commander Ernest Evans was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously. The citation recognized his extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty. But that language, formal as it is, doesn't capture what actually happened. A man made a decision under pressure, with incomplete information, knowing it would likely cost him everything, and he made the choice that gave others a chance to live. The Battle of Leyte Gulf is remembered as a naval turning point. History books mention it, documentaries cover it, but they usually focus on the big ships, the battleships, the carriers, the famous names. The Johnston doesn't get the same attention. She was a destroyer escort, a cheap warship built in large numbers, easily replaceable in the ledgers of war, except she wasn't replaceable at all. 186 sailors made the decision to trust their captain. They didn't know they were about to become part of history. They didn't know their sacrifice would echo decades into the future. They knew their ship was outgunned. They knew the odds were terrible, and they operated the guns anyway. They steered the ship anyway. They followed orders anyway. The USS Johnston rests now in the deep ocean, 20,000 feet down, where the pressure is immense and the cold is absolute. She's no longer a ship, she's a memorial, a physical record of a decision made in desperation that changed the course of a war. The wreck sits there in the darkness, waiting, not for rescue, not for salvage, just waiting, as monuments do, for people to remember what she cost. History doesn't always remember the ships that bought time with their hulls. It doesn't always honor the crews who knew they were outgunned and fought anyway. But the Johnston's wreck, deeper than any other warship, serves as a permanent reminder. Sometimes the smallest decisions made under the worst pressure, with the worst odds, matter the most. And sometimes the real heroes are the ones nobody expected to win. Subscribe. Each week we surface another shipwreck story that history almost forgot.